What is it? Oh! Wow! Cat in the Clouds. This is one of Dada's favorites. About Mount Washington.
Washington.
The highest mountain in
The world.
No, New Hampshire. Min showed up on the doorstep one day looking for a place to stay. He brushed against Mark's legs and jumped right into Susan's lap. "We already have 2 cats," Susan said. Min just purred and fell asleep. Min loved Susan and Mark, but he and the other 2 cats did not get along. They had to share a dinner bowl. They had to share the sofa. Most of all, they had to share Mark and Susan. There were 3 cats now, but Mark and Susan still only had 2 laps. The cats had to take turns sitting, purring, and being petted. Min wasn't used to sharing. He had always been an only cat. "Maybe I'll take Nin to Mount Washington," said Mark. Mount Washington is a cold, snowy mountain, but high on the summit you'll find a warm, safe observatory. Only a few people live there. They study the weather. How deep is the snow? How fast does the wind blow? How cloudy is the sky? Every other week, Mark lived at the observatory high above the clouds. The mountain can be a lonely place in the winter, he said. I bet a cat would be welcome there.
Yeah.
It was a damp, gray day when Nin and Mark drove to Mount Washington. Where's Mount Washington, John? Where's the top of Mount Washington?
In the sky.
He tried to hop on Mark's lap. "Not while I'm driving," said Mark. Nin jumped in the back seat and watched as spruce trees, lakes, and hills raced by. They drove out of Vermont and into New Hampshire. Looming in the distance, Nin saw a snow-capped peak. Mount Washington.
What's that?
That's the observatory up there. It was cold and snowy and blustery at the bottom of Mount Washington. Nin, Mark, and the rest of the crew crowded into the back of the snow tractor. For hours, the tractor shoved aside towering snowdrifts.
What is that pink and
That's
purple?
his jacket.
Yeah. His jacket? His?
Yep, all their jackets. Nin couldn't see outside. Neither could the driver. The fog and blowing snow were too thick. The snow tractor had to stop and wait. The road to the summit curved around the top of a great ravine, and no one wanted to risk falling over the edge. The snow tractor was a noisy, bumpy, uncomfortable machine. Nin sat in people's laps, but he was not purring anymore. That's everybody's stuff.
So
They can bring their clothes up and their food for the kitty and other stuff.
they
See?
can get up?
It's all up on top there,
Yeah.
and they're bringing it up.
They can do everything.
At last, the fog cleared. A building appeared. The observatory. Everyone jumped over the cold snow tractor and into the warm building.
And that.
Nin wanted to explore the strange new place. Everywhere we found new sights, new smells, and new faces.
With me.
You can find them, John. As people unzipped their pockets and pulled off their gloves, hats, goggles, and scarves, Nin wandered away. No, that's his boots. Where did he go? Where's Nin? Where did he go? The crew didn't know.
That's Min.
That's Min.
What's that other kitty?
There isn't any other kitty.
No, he said he'll take someone there.
Yeah, he's taking Min.
That's Min?
Yeah,
Who's that?
that's Min.
He said he's taking himself.
Listen, everybody.
He said
Listen.
What?
Min did not go far. He found a room full of beeping computers and blinking lights. A ladder led up to the ceiling where one of the tiles was ajar. What was up there? Quick as a flash, Min ran up the ladder and through the hole. Thump, thump, thump. In the next room, Mark and the crew drank hot chocolate and talked about the weather. They heard noises over their head. The ceiling tiles jiggled. What's that? Said Mark. Is that a rat? Someone else asked. Suddenly, Min peeked down at them. He wanted to join the conversation, too. He was up in the ceiling. Min liked to watch the meteorologist work.
Who's that black?
That's a worker.
That's Min.
Yeah. It's a meteorologist. He was learning about the weather. Every hour they climbed up the tall tower to knock ice off the weather instruments. Min went too, as far as he dared. He hopped from step to step all the way up the metal ladder to the cold room, right up to the wooden door that led outside. He wouldn't go farther. Beyond that door, the wind roared. Chunks of ice hurtled across the sky. Mark and the others had to clear ice without Min's help.
Wait, who's that?
That's Mark and the others.
And the others?
When the wind howled stronger than a hurricane, Min's new friends played a game. They tried to walk all around the observation deck without being swept off their feet. Most of them fell down. They had to crawl back to the door.
What is that?
He's on a sled. Some sat on sleds and held out their arms like sails. His shadow.
The shadow?
Strong gusts pushed them like hockey pucks across the deck. What fun!
Who's that?
That's Min.
Min?
Min stayed safe inside the tower door. He was too small and light to play in the wind. Can you guys see Min in that picture over there?
What?
Can you see Min in this picture? Yeah, he's peeking out the door at everybody, yeah. Like this. That's what Min sees. Min liked to sit by the windows and watch the ravens soar. He watched a red fox trot across the snow. Once he even saw a bear.
Bear.
On calm days, he padded outside. He didn't go far. Cold ice hurt his paws. Spring followed winter. The fog cleared, the snow melted, except for a few patches gleaming in the sun. And Min saw other mountains far down the trail. Two of the crew, Matt and Jake, hiked down to Mount Clay. Min followed them.
No.
Wait for me, guys!
Hey. I was gonna do it.
Next page. Min sniffed at little white flowers tall as the Ampsia. He marched over hard boulders and soft moss and lichens. At the top of the great gulf, he gazed down at a tiny lake far below. Min shivered in the breeze. But he was happy to hike with Matt and Jake, exploring other peaks above the clouds. Jake let Min drink some water from a canteen. Then they all walked back to the observatory. Next page. The next day, on a cool and breezy morning, the Mount Washington Auto Road opened its gate. Tourists and cars drove up to the summit. Hundreds of other people rode up on the cog railway. The first ones off the train were Sally, her mother, and her little brother Pete.
That's a Thomas.
That's a choo-choo. Yep, you can take a choo-choo train to the top of Mount Washington. See, look at it. It goes up this road. This track.
Then it will go up to here, up to here.
Look, Mom, Sally said. A cat. A cat on the mountain? A mountain lion, asked Pete. No, Sally said. Too small to be a mountain lion and too friendly. Nin rubbed against Sally's legs and purred.
Who's that and that?
That's Sally and Pete.
And who is that?
Who do you think?
Nin.
He must belong to someone, said Pete. Sally crossed her arms. Cats don't belong to anybody. They're their own. But he must have a home.
Who is that and that? And
Surely not here on the mountain, said their mother. But where?
who is that and
Look
that?
out. Other people looking at the mountain.
And
Nin lifted his tail and strolled inside the Sherman Adams Summit Building. Sally, Pete, and their mother followed. They followed Nin past the picnic tables, past the gift shops full of T-shirts, postcards, and little toy moose, past the ranger's booth and the line of hikers. They walked to the end of the building.
that's his
They came
mama.
to the observatory.
That's his mama.
Yep.
That's
Here is where they study the weather, said Sally's mom. Hello, said the weather observer. Would you like a tour? Let's go inside, said Sally and Pete. Nin walked back outside. He lay down in the sun. The wind was cool, but the sun heated the boulders. He found a nice warm rock and took a nap. Around him, visitors walked and talked and gawked at the view. Many shivered in the breeze. They were used to the warm weather below. They hadn't thought they would need jackets, but when they saw Nin, all kids that go to the top of the Mount Washington. But then they saw Nin, they forgot how chilly they were. Oh, look, a cat, they said, on a mountain top? How strange is that? Nin had never seen so many people. They all liked to pet him and smile at him and tell him how handsome he was. There were plenty of laps and no other cats. Soon the sun began to set. The tourists drove down the mountain. Nin ran back inside the observatory. Yeah, he lives on top of the mountain. Downstairs in the kitchen, the meteorologists were talking about the weather again. A cold front is coming through tomorrow, one person says. Nin didn't know what a cold front was. He just enjoyed the company. Nin jumped up into Mark's chair and fell asleep. He had found a nice home here on the mountain. He decided to stay. Good book. Good book. Yep. All the different cities that live up on Mount Washington. Great book, guys. Good pick, John.
He's saying he'll bring himself the last Washington
Yep, he's looking at the poster saying, I'm going to go up to Mount Washington.
all by myself.
Yeah. And he'll get to see Mark every other week up there.
There's no cat. There was two more kitties that I was up in the mountain, but they couldn't find them.
No, they weren't up on the mountain. They were down below.
Yeah, they
In
were down
Vermont.
low. They
Mark
were down
and
low.
Susan didn't want another kitty.
They were down low though.
Yeah. They were in the house down low.
Yeah.
And then Nin went up on top of the mountain.
He goes in the door and those kitties.
Yeah.
Oh. They go in the door on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bunny.
Oh,